Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Knowledge is Power session. My name is Gareth Fenley, and I'll be your host. I'm honored to host today's session. For those joining for the first time, Resilient Immigrant is more than just a community. We're an organization that celebrates immigrant advancement, amplifies immigrant accomplishments, actively dismantles harmful narratives, and inspires current and future immigrants to pursue leadership, excellence, and impact. So today it's my honor to introduce you to a truly international influencer, Sheena Yap Chan. We are so fortunate Sheena can fit us into her busy schedule. She's just hopping in from another speaking engagement. And she defines her mission this way: to elevate the voices of women and beyond, creating a ripple effect of empowerment that redefines what it means to be seen, heard, and self assured in every space. She teaches us that confidence isn't something you have, it's something you practice. And I've been reading and learning all about her career. Sheena Yap Chan has developed these lessons through her own life experience as an immigrant. Born in the Philippines, she moved with her family at age 7 to Toronto, Canada, where her father was seeking greater opportunity. As the family was taking care of relatives, young Sheena resided in the Philippines between ages of 13 and 16, and then returned to Canada as her permanent home. Sheena recalls she didn't see herself physically reflected in the feminine beauty standard as she was growing up. In her 20s, she was having her hair dyed blonde and paying the hairdresser to retouch her roots every few months. And then she decided to have her hair return to its natural dark color and beautiful we see it today. To get it done the first time, she had to have it dyed. She wrote later that was when she embraced being Asian. And so, fast forward to age 34, back in 2015, Gina created her own podcast, calling it the Tao of Self Confidence. And now, a decade later, after more than 800 interviews, she's done many, many interviews of celebrities, CEOs, and cultural icons. Sheena's podcast ranks in the top 0.5% globally, with well over a million downloads. Her published work includes 3 books. She's been recognized as a bestseller by Wall Street Journal and Publishers Weekly. And she told her story in Asian Women Who Boss Up. Then her first book as a solo author was also focused on Asian women. The title is The Tao of Self-Confidence, a guide to moving beyond trauma and awakening the leader within. It was picked up by Wiley, a major publisher, which also published her latest book, Bridging the Confidence Gap. And this is a fresh call to reimagine leadership by focusing on the core competencies of visibility and self-trust. So Sheena develops and delivers transformational keynote speeches and has been hosted by TEDx. She has corporate programs that help organizations bridge the confidence gap, retain diverse talent, and build cultures where women are seen, heard, and respected. Sheena Yap Chan is the founder of the Confidence Through Visibility movement, elevating women's leadership and self confidence. She trademarked her own approach and she calls it the visible framework. She believes that confidence is something each woman can build, and visibility creates the impact we wish to see in the world. Welcome, Sheena Yap Chan. How are you
Hey,
today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the lovely introduction.
I enjoyed so much learning all about you and your life as an immigrant and a successful, phenomenal influencer.
Oh, wow. I still don't really consider myself as an influencer, but yeah, I'm just grateful to be able to do this work, especially migrating from the Philippines to Toronto. It was a big uphill battle, of course, but it's the reason why I do the work that I do today because I understand how hard it can be at times, but resilience is the key to keep moving forward, to show up even when times are tough.
I noticed that in your visibility, or you call it the visible framework, the first letter V is for voice. owning your story and speaking your truth. Does that come easily to you, or did you grow into it?
It definitely wasn't easy. Growing up in Asian culture, we're not taught to speak up, to share our voice. We're mostly told to stay in the background and never make any noise. So, for me, I had to unlearn a lot of things in my culture and relearn new things. And especially, if you want to make a name for yourself or put yourself out there, it is important to speak up, to share your voice, to be clear, to communicate clearly so that people can understand what you want, what you bring to the table, or what you are looking for. I see so many people, like professionals, who are even just afraid to put their hand up and share an idea at a meeting, right? Like they're so afraid and they don't realize the person beside them has said the same exact idea and was praised for it. So for me, like, I don't want that to happen to anyone who's watching, right? If you have an idea, just share it, right? Even if you think it sounds bad, it's okay. I mean, sometimes I'll start with, this may sound like a stupid idea, and I'll just say it anyways, because it's so important to practice speaking our voice, speaking up, sharing our voice, communicating clearly, so that people can see us as a leader as well.
How did you go from being someone who was kind of having trouble embracing your self worth to someone who is now such a powerful, influential TEDx speaker and published author? It must have been a difficult journey. What were some of the aha moments along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I had to learn to let go of pleasing other people. Again, in my culture, we're told to take care of everybody else and forget to take care of the most important person, which is ourselves. So I really had to learn to let go of what others think of me, seeking approval. I had to like rewire my brain. This took 10 years, over 10 years of work to do. It wasn't something that was overnight. In fact, interviewing so many women on the podcast really helped me see confidence as well. Because I used to think confidence was, something that you had to be loud and boisterous and be out there. But really, you can be yourself. You can still be an introvert and still be confident. So being able to learn from them, being able to realize they also went through, hardships that I went through, right? Because a lot of us don't talk about the things that we go through. We just kind of keep it to ourselves, thinking we're the only ones dealing with it. But when we hear other people are dealing with similar things, we don't feel so alone, and we realize it's part of the process. Also, with mental health, we weren't taught to go talk to a mental health therapist or seek help. We were just taught, if you don't talk about it, it never happened. But of course, it happened, right? I mean, we all go through trauma, and sometimes we go through trauma that's not ours. So we go through our parents or grandparents, like intergenerational trauma goes 4 generations deep. So I also had to be aware, of the things that I went through so I can work through it, right? Sometimes we're not aware of trauma that we've gone through, or we're not aware why we hold back. And so when we start asking the right questions, the right answer appears. And I didn't do this alone. I asked for help. I worked with people to really, because we all have blind spots, and they're blind spots for a reason. And so that's why you need a second and third pair of eyes to see those blind spots so they can correct it and you can move forward. So yeah, a lot of unlearning, relearning, being messy, being okay with making mistakes, being okay with imperfection, to really show up with as who I am.
I was curious when you talked about an Asian identity and an Asian culture. If you do a little Googling, you'll see that the people of Asia are the majority of people in the entire world. More than half of the people in the world live in Asia. And yet, in some parts of North America, people who are Asian from many, many different countries and cultures are a minority and have sort of developed a pan Asian culture. So I'm really curious about how that works out in your own life.
I mean, it's good and bad. I mean, like anything, there's good and bad things with it. One of the things that we were taught to do was, if we work hard, the results speak for itself. That is not the case. Working hard doesn't equate to opportunities. It doesn't equate to promotions. It doesn't equate to being in leadership roles. Like, you have to also talk about what you were able to achieve. So, one of the pillars that I have in the visible framework is spotlight, right? Like, you have to be okay to share your achievements. You have to be okay with promoting yourself, because nobody else is going to do it. Like my biggest fear is that you're going to go, you do all the work, you don't say anything, and somebody else takes credit for it. And I've seen that time and time again. Like, in fact, I just watched a movie that just came out that had that a similar situation where this girl, she was an accountant, she fixed the book, she did all the work, she gave it to her male colleague, and they were both supposed to go in the meeting, and her male colleague was like, oh no, we don't need you, you'll be fine, we have the work that you did. And she was like, are you going to tell them that I did the work? Like, I put my name on with a post-it note. She's like, yeah, don't worry, I got your back. And when the meeting started, she went to just look and see if he did do it, and he actually took that post-it note and threw it out. So, this is why it's so important to showcase what you do, who you are, showcase your achievements, because if not, someone else might take credit for it. And that's not what I want for anyone who's listening.
So you published your first work as part of a book, Asian Women Who Boss Up.
Yeah.
And then your second book focused on Asian women. Is the new book, the one that's been out since last year, the newest book, is that one focused specifically on Asian women?
No, it's for all women. I mean, it's for anybody, of course. But part of the reason why I wrote my latest book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, was because I saw a report from the UN that mentioned, or no, not UN, from the World Economic Forum that mentioned that total gender parity would be achieved at the earliest in the year 2154. Yeah, you're like thinking, let me do the math. It's a long time, and that's when I
2154, that's in the future, far in the
yeah,
future.
far in the future. And that's when I actually was writing the book, which was in the summer of 2024. So now it's delayed 4 more years. Now they're saying it's 2158. And so that's what really got me started writing that book, because it's like, why do we have this gap? What's stopping us? When it comes to the confidence gap, there's a disconnect between how capable we are versus how capable we feel. So we're all capable, but how we perceive ourselves stops us from moving forward. Like if a man and a woman were to apply for the same promotion, a man would be like 30 to 50% ready, and he's just gonna go for it. While as a woman, she's 110% ready, but she still feels like she's not ready. And so because of that, we lose out on leadership roles. And of course, not that's not just the only reason, right? We go through a lot of systemic things as a woman. There's just so many, right? But that all adds up to it. So it is important to step into those leadership roles, because a lot of these roles are still, male dominated. And now with the rise of AI, we're also having a gap with women utilizing it, right? Because they fear it. It's a technology that's here to stay, and it's important to embrace it and utilize it, because it can help us build new opportunities. Yes, it's going to eliminate some things, but it's also going to create new things. So it's a tool like anything else, and how you utilize it is what matters, right? It's like the internet. When the internet first came out, nobody knew what was going to happen. They just saw it as a tool. But I mean, look where we are today. Like, we can connect with people all around the world. We can get the news in an instant. We can shop from the comfort of our home. Like, there's so many things that has been created and have created new opportunities for so many people. And if we treat AI the same way, just imagine what we could achieve. So yeah, I had to do a lot of work.
I've seen that you've written about AI quite a bit, and are concerned about its impact and influence on people. Talking a little bit about being an immigrant and being between at least two or maybe three or more cultures, how does culture impact on AI? Is AI just completely one culture, or does it wipe out culture?
I mean, from my experience, I don't think it wipes out culture. I mean, again, it's a tool, it's how you utilize the tool, right? So, I mean, yes, there's good and bad in everything, right? If you use that tool for bad things are going to come out. But when it comes to culture, I mean, I think it's all depends on how you utilize that tool. That's how I see it. So for me, I don't think it eliminates it. You can you can use AI to enhance it if you have the right prompts or commands to help it out. So yeah.
I actually use AI quite a bit. but I still write my own material. When you were
Yeah.
writing your book and when you're creating your podcast, do you use AI to write or do you write your own?
No, that I had the books I had to write on my own. So actually, both books I wrote it before like AI was a thing. So, and then the podcast, yeah, I still write it. So, yeah,
Wonderful. I did want to talk a little bit about the visible framework.
yeah.
Um, you say that this is the foundation of your approach, the foundation of every keynote training and coaching session. And that first one, voice, owning your story and speaking your truth. Did you want to say anything more about voice, the voice of an immigrant?
I know it's not easy. When you come into a new country, like it's a big culture shock. Especially if English isn't your first language. I think if you really want to do better, you're gonna find a way to do it, right? Like I met a man who was from Africa and moved to the States, and English wasn't his first language, but he was willing to learn English because he wanted to be a med tech. So he needed to do what he had to do to be seen, right? So in order for him to speak up and share his voice, like he needed to speaking English because in the U.S., right, like that's the number one language, and so um, like if you want to be heard, you want to be seen, like you might have to do that, but be I think it's important to just practice speaking up as much as possible, and you don't have to, and if like literally speaking up is still scary, then start small. Maybe you know write an email, talk to one person, like, or send a message, like do something rather than nothing, or have 3 or 4 ways to communicate.
What about identity? That's the next one, invisible, embracing who you are and what you stand for. What would be your advice to immigrants who are watching this as far as embracing an identity that may be split between two countries or two cultures or even more?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I had to adapt to both Eastern and Western culture. I mean, I grew up in two Asian cultures and then I moved to Toronto. So I mix both of them because they're part of who I am, right? And identity is about showing up as who you are, what your values are, your upbringing, it goes beyond titles. And again, with the rise of AI, people are looking for more human connection. So being authentic is going to be the key. And maybe, people have heard this time and time again, like you have to be authentic, you have to be authentic. It gets played out, but it is true. It is important to show up as your true self, what you bring to the table, because if you'll feel a lot lighter, you'll feel a lot better, you'll have more confidence. And, people gravitate to real people, right? there's a reason why um, there's a reason why like reality TV shows are so popular, because they're like a hot mess. Right? They show their real lives and people are drawn to it. So identity is really about showing up as who you are, what your values, your upbringing, your experiences. That's what will set you apart from everybody else.
Now, this next one's S for spotlight,
Yeah.
stepping into visibility with purpose and intention. I think that unfolds from what you were just saying, the
Yeah.
spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, being in the spotlight isn't easy. It's terrifying. I totally get that. I never wanted to be in the spotlight, but in order to create change, it has to start with us. And if you want these opportunities, you also have to be in the spotlight. Like, again, share your achievements, share what you've been able to accomplish, share, whatever processes you've created. Like, it's not just about hard work, it's about also working smart, because being visible is not about being everything everywhere all at once. It's about being in front of the right decision makers, right? So, like, another story, I saw this TikTok video of a girl who decided to just like create a jingle for Dr. Pepper. She's like, "Oh, I just created a jingle for Dr. Pepper." It was like 7 seconds long, and it went viral. I think it racked up like 40 million views. And when she saw that, she immediately tagged Dr. Pepper to that post to show them how much viral sustainability it got. And because she did that, Dr. Pepper reached out to her, paid her $2 million to do a commercial.
No
And
way.
yeah, and it
Two
was shown in
million.
like an NFL game. It was, and then she's working with other companies to create jingles. But imagine if she didn't tag Dr. Pepper, someone else could have taken credit for her jingle, right? So this is why being the spotlight is important. And again, it's not about being everywhere, it's being in front of the right decision makers. She knew that if she didn't tag Dr. Pepper, someone else would have taken her thunder. So I'm glad that she was quick to do it, and now she's $2 million rich.
Wow, what a great story. How about inner work, building emotional and mental strength from within? This talks
Yeah,
about the inner work.
80% of the work that we do will be inner work, working from the inside out, working through our mindset, working through our emotional, intelligence, working through our trauma, right? A lot of people, they always ask me, well, how do you build confidence? I want to learn how to build confidence. And I really actually, instead of telling them how to build confidence, I actually go back to them asking, like, what's really stopping you from moving forward? Like, what's the root cause, right? Like, again, we go through trauma that we're not aware of. And if we're not aware of that, it's just stuck to us, right? And it holds us back. So, like for me in the Philippines, I failed kindergarten for coloring outside the lines of a photo. And yeah, it's wild, but it's true. I was given a photo to color. I couldn't color within the lines. I colored all over the place. I was given a brand new
Mhm.
photo to color in, same exact result. And because of that, I failed kindergarten, moved to another school, and redo kindergarten all over again. And
Oh
at
my
5 years old,
goodness, you failed kindergarten. That's terrible.
yeah, and
Terrible of the school to do that to you.
yeah, and at 5 years old, you don't know any better, right? You don't know what trauma is. But in my adult life, I was always afraid to launch stuff or start anything because I would just assume I was an instant failure. So I never tried. And it wasn't until I went to a personal development seminar where I realized that I was feeling this way because of that one moment where I failed kindergarten. So, we go through trauma that we're not aware of. And if we don't work through it, it's going to be stuck with us. And again, we're not only carrying our own traumas, we're carrying our parents, grandparents, intergenerational traumas, 4 generations deep. So we have to, be aware, like, what is stopping us, and then how can we fix it. And we have to think of our brain as like a computer hardware. If you feed it with good things, it'll work properly. But what happens when there's a virus, right? There's pop-ups everywhere, your computer's out of whack, it's not working properly, files are lost. And so you have to treat your brain the same way. You have to feed it with good things, work on yourself, personal development every single day. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day, start somewhere. So yeah.
How would someone who is watching this podcast do some inner work inspired by the visible framework?
Again, like I mentioned, personal development every single day. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day, start with 5 minutes. It's a small, actionable daily sets, daily thing, daily. It's a small, actual daily steps that yield the big results, right? So maybe it's reading a self-help book and just start with 1 page a day, right? Like just start messy, start small. Rome wasn't built in a day, so don't expect yourself the same thing, right? Like you can't do everything at once. You can't go from 0 to 100. Just go from 0 to 1 and then build as you go, 1 to 2 and then so on.
I once heard a saying, start before you are ready. I like that saying because endless preparation never leads to action. The next letter in visible is B for belief, trusting your worth, value, and unique path. Want to talk
Yeah,
a little about that?
yeah, I mean, belief is everything, right? Like, without belief, you're not going to go out there and take the first step or achieve your goal. So you have to know that you're more than capable, and it doesn't matter if you don't have all the answers. You'll figure it out as you go because you've been able to accomplish something once, and if you've been able to do it once, you can do it again, right? You just kind of have to figure out that process that got you there. And so, like you mentioned, start before you're ready. Like in my book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, I talk about this strategy of ready, fire, aim, right? Which is the same thing. Start before you're ready, take action, and course correct as you go. And the more you keep doing that, the more you can get results, build your confidence, realize your potential. And so, when it comes to belief, know you can do it. Know you don't have to have all the answers at once. Know you can figure it out as you go, and you'd be surprised what you can achieve.
How about L, leverage, using your voice, influence, and platform for impact? Leverage.
Yeah, I mean, especially as women, we've always been taught to do everything ourselves. and it gets exhausting, right? Like we get burnt out, it's too much. And so it's important to leverage. This is why like AI is a great tool to leverage. You know, you have networks, you have support systems, you have communities, you have organizations. Like utilize those, right? Like you could be just one connection away from maybe getting a job interview or connecting to somebody else, but you don't have to do every single thing yourself. Like use your leverage, use your networks, use the tools to elevate your voice, take it to the next level, to scale it versus trying to do every single thing yourself.
Is that about like getting a virtual assistant and
Yeah,
using
getting a
AI?
virtual assistant, networking with other people, doing collaborations, utilizing tools to automate things. Like you don't have to do every single thing yourself.
And then the last one, E, elevation, rising while helping others rise too.
Yeah, when it comes to leadership, as we're moving up, we have to bring others with us. That's how we can create more leaders, right? That's how we can bring more leaders into the spaces that we want them in. You know, being lonely, being the only one at the top can get lonely. So it's better we bring others with us. Like, you know, I get a lot of women telling me they have mentorship, but then they don't you know they get confused because they don't know what to do after the mentorship, right? So it's important to have mentorship and sponsorship, you know, helping those women get in those spaces as well. You've already mentored them into a leader, and if they don't apply it, then it's wasted effort on both parts. So elevation is very important. Bringing others with us, helping others, lifting others up. That's how we can create more leaders. It becomes a domino effect.
When you've lifted others up along with you, what is the value of that? Is that changing and improving just on your own behalf, or is it helping collectively? Sounds like you've got some kids having fun back there.
Yeah.
I wanted to
They're
ask about when you raise up others with you, does that help just yourself or does it help beyond just yourself?
I think it's a win-win situation, right? We help others, we help ourselves, and it's, you know, we want to create win-win situations. We want to lift others up, we want to show them their potential, their capabilities, and at the same time it also shows us that we're capable to lift others up. We're able to create an impact on somebody.
I wanted to talk a little bit about trauma. By profession, I'm a social worker. I do community organizing, and I also, in my background for a while, worked in the mental health field. And the understanding of trauma in North America has been recent. The diagnosis of post traumatic stress disorder wasn't even added to the Book of Mental Disorders until 1973. The
Huh.
understanding that trauma can affect ordinary people who haven't been in combat, but just who have had the kind of trauma that happens when you have a bad experience in kindergarten or when your
Yeah.
ancestors have passed along trauma to you, that trauma is a much more common experience for children and adults around the world. That's pretty new in this culture. The idea of resilience, that a person can bounce back from trauma, that they can build on strengths even though they've been through trauma, that's pretty new in North American culture within the past few decades. It may have been around before then, but at least in the mental health field, it's fairly novel. So I wanted to get your take on trauma and how you included that in the Tao of self confidence.
Yeah, I mean, um, you know, trauma is something we don't talk about in our culture at all. Again, you know, I have elders who think that mental health isn't real. You know, we're not taught to talk about our feelings. We're taught to keep everything to ourselves, and that really hurts us, right? We have all these bottle up feelings, and we have no outlet to let it out. That's how we start having low confidence, not feeling good enough, and also like we're not ingrained to talk about trauma, even though we go through a lot of trauma, right? And so that was the reason why I wrote the book, because I understood there was people out there who were going through the similar things that I was going through but never talked about it. So when they read the book, they were like, "Oh my goodness, this book speaks to me. You know, it's exactly like what I was going through. Thank you so much for sharing it, for writing it. It was so needed. And it goes beyond my culture. I've had people from different cultures read it and they say, "Oh my goodness, like even though you're this culture, I'm that culture, we still go through similar things, right?" So I think it's important to share our experiences, our specific stories, because even if they're specific, someone else can still relate to it.
What about generational and cultural trauma? And here in North America, are you in Canada today? Are you up
Yeah,
there in Toronto today? You're in
I'm in
Toronto?
Toronto.
I'm
Yeah.
down here in Georgia. In both of the lands where we're living right now, there were indigenous people here that were forced out by the colonial settlers. What about the awareness of generational, cultural, historical trauma? There has been a lot of controversy, at least in the United States, about whether we recognize that or not, whether we teach children about what happened with events in the past where ancestors were either victims or perpetrators of genocide. What are your thoughts on cultural trauma and how we can be resilient in the face of that reality?
Yeah, I mean, like we go through a lot of historical trauma, especially as women, right? We've gone through so much. I think it's important to talk about that. And yeah, here too, like indigenous people were basically, their land was taken over. They went in Canada, we had residential schools where they were put in these separate schools where they were tortured, they were abused sexually, mentally. Like it was terrible, right? Like, it was only like less than 5 years ago where they found out there was like 200 bodies, unidentified bodies of indigenous children that were buried under these schools. And the last school that they had open was like still around 1990. So it's very, fairly new. And so now, we're more aware of it. We have certain holidays to bring awareness, like Truth and Reconciliation Day. We wear certain colors for it, like orange is the color. And, we are more aware and about it, talking about it, also honoring the land because, I mean, it's their land, right? We have to talk about these things, bring these up because nobody ever did. And now, like, we can't even blame the people who started it because they're all gone. So, it's traumatizing. And in fact, there was a movie that I watched on Netflix talking about like one man's experience in a residential school and what they went through, and it's horrifying. Like, and that was just a movie. I can only imagine what happened back then. Like, it was terrible. So yeah,
And not so long ago, really only a few
very, very,
decades ago.
very, yeah. Like it, like again, the last school that was open was probably around the 90s. So it's not even that far.
So how do we build resilience and success in the face of being aware of these overwhelming cultural and historical traumas? How do we be resilient?
I think, it's important having a purpose. I think purpose helps us become resilient. If you don't have purpose, you're not going to keep moving forward when times are tough, right? Like for me, representation was so important. So I was willing to keep going, even if I had no clue what I was doing. I just knew it was going somewhere. Um, and that built my resilience because there's days where I wanted to quit, or there's days where I question myself, and then I realize why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I keep moving forward. So I think having purpose is important. Like, even the show, The Resilient Immigrant, there's a reason why you created it, because of a purpose, right? To help immigrants out there, because I get it. It's not easy coming into a new country. English, especially if English isn't your first language, it's a huge culture shock. You have to learn Western culture and then still keep your own culture. Like it's a lot. So yeah.
It is so much. It is so much. But that purpose that you speak of, that resilience that people have, that's something we want to always be returning to.
Yeah.
That gets to the inner work.
Yeah.
That gets to the inner work. I wanted to look and see. I had another question that I wrote up.
Okay.
Um, in a culture where self promotion might feel boastful or culturally inappropriate, How can immigrant professionals communicate their wins without feeling like they're being too much?
I think it's just that mindset thinking that we're too much. Like, who decided that, right? Like, for so long, we were taught that self promotion is tacky, it's not ladylike. But who decided that, really, right? Again, when you come from purpose, it'll be easier to promote because you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for others, you're doing it to showcase what you've been to achieve and help others realize if I can do it, they can do it. So that's how I see it. And for me, self promotion is a leadership quality. Like in my book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, I have a whole chapter on self promotion because I
Mhm.
understand that a lot of people are very uncomfortable with it. But again, like, it's part of spotlight, right? If you don't showcase your work, no one's going to know, and then someone else might take credit for it. So, maybe thinking it from that perspective, put yourself out there or else someone else will take your spot. Someone less deserving, right? They were just more willing to put themselves out there.
So that's sort of a competitive mindset, trying to get ahead. What about folks who feel a little funny about trying to get ahead and feel it's maybe too aggressive? How can we have confidence and bring others alongside us and not try to take away from others through our advancement?
Yeah, I think again, having purpose, right? You're doing things because it's not just about you, it's for a bigger goal, bigger mission. So I think when you have that, you're not going to feel like you're taking somebody's spot, you're taking over. Because there's people out there who are way less qualified than you and are getting those opportunities because they're willing to be more seen, right? So it's not like they're not any better than you, they're just more willing to put themselves out there. So, like, you have to be okay with showing up, or else those opportunities are gone and it's going to go to somebody else who's less qualified. So I don't know, for me, that's how I see it. If I do it, if there is a time that I have stepped over somebody, you know I would apologize too, right? Sometimes I'm not aware. I mean, I'm human, right? I'm not going to always get it right. So yeah.
What should a professional do if they feel like international credentials are being overlooked or undervalued by their employer or by the job field? A lot of immigrants come to the US highly educated, highly skilled, and what do we do? What do they do if they arrive and their credentials are not appreciated?
I mean, unfortunately, coming here, we have to start from scratch, right? Like,
Mm.
even me coming back to Canada from the Philippines, like, I had to go back a grade in high school. Even though I already graduated high school in the Philippines, I still had to go back to high school. And it's either I complain about it or I keep moving, right? If we really want that, we're gonna find a way to get it done. Like I met a man I met a man who, again, was from Africa and came to the States. He wanted to be a med tech, and so he did whatever it took to be that, right? Even if it meant going to school night school 3 times a week, getting a job in the hospital just to get his foot in the door in the industry that he wants to be in. It's like, what are you willing to do? I mean, unfortunately, like, these are the rules that North America has, and we can't really do anything at the moment. If there was like a school that was internationally recognized, that's great. But I think if you're willing to, if this is where you want what you want to do, you might have to start from scratch, unfortunately. I don't like I mean, if there was a better way, I would share it, but at this point, yeah, like, we might just have to start from scratch.
Immigration is part of my own family story, but you'd have to go back some generations. I've seen a photo that shows that there's actually a farm, 600-year-old farm in Germany that some of my ancestors are still living on. But when they came to the United States, they didn't keep most of their culture. They stopped speaking German, and none of the German culture got handed on down to when I came on the scene in 1961. We didn't identify with Germany at all. We identified simply with the United States. And I'm curious about more recent immigrants who were keeping their culture, their language, their identity, um, and not completely assimilating as my ancestors did. I think that's a better way. I like the multiculturalism that we have, and I've read that Toronto, Canada, where you live, has a lot of people from a lot of different
Yeah.
countries all together in a wonderful mosaic of cultural diversity.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I love Toronto. It's very multicultural. We get to learn from each other's cultures. We go through different festivals in the summer. We get to try different cuisines. When you look at like California, right? If California was its own country, it would have it's the fourth largest GDP in the world if it were a country. And you know why? Because it also thrives on multiculturalism, right? Different cultures, different from different parts of the world. Like you can see that in California. So for me, I love I think it's what stands out in Toronto and places like California.
So you'd be more on the side of multiculturalism rather than complete assimilation.
Yeah, multiculturalism. Sorry.
You'd be more on the side of diversity and affirming different cultures all alongside each other, working together.
Yeah, I mean, for Toronto, we've done that for so long. Like it just wasn't represented in media, but you go to different neighborhoods, you go to different malls, different shops, like from different parts of the world. Again, trying different cuisines. Like, we it was great because we got to learn from each other. We respected each other's cultures, each other's religions, and still all lived cohesively. Right? Things have changed, but you know, I mean, it's still one of like for me, it's always been like that. So I guess I'm used to that.
Hmm. I think that's, to me, a wonderful cosmopolitan kind of life, having all those cultures together. I wanted to also ask you something else having to do with the emotional resilience that you've developed. Imposter syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Yeah,
Um,
I
it,
mean, I have a whole
it's
chapter on that in the book as well.
oh wow! I've got to read this book. Which book is it that has a chapter on
Bridging the
imposter syndrome?
confidence gap. Bridging
The
the
new
confidence
one.
gap. Yeah, so there's a whole chapter on imposter syndrome, a whole chapter on self promotion. And yeah, I've gone through imposter syndrome. More women deal with it than men. In fact, there was a report that mentioned 74% of women professionals go through imposter syndrome. So that's a lot. And I always tell people, imposter syndrome is not a bad thing. If we see it as something positive, we're more willing to keep moving forward. For me, I tell people, as you're leveling up in your career, in your business, it's gonna feel uncomfortable. You're gonna doubt yourself. Like that's just part of the process. It's not gonna be like rainbows and butterflies. So every time you're going through those imposter feelings, just know that it's a sign that you're leveling up versus like resisting.
Leveling up. I like that metaphor. So, how do you distinguish between a lack of skill where you need to build more skills to get better at what you do within yourself and a cultural discrimination where other people just aren't recognizing the skills you do have? How do you believe I need to develop more to do more of what it takes when other people aren't necessarily recognizing you due to looking different?
I mean, I think it's important to document what you've accomplished. Maybe that's a great way to do that so you can show them, like, here's proof, like, I'm qualified for this, right? When you can document things, when you can record what you've been able to do, then people can see that, right? This is why being visible, being in the spotlight. And again, visibility is not being everywhere, it's being in front of the right decision makers. So when you can do that, it helps a lot more because if they don't see anything, then yeah, they're not going to believe you. But if you have the proof, if you've documented, if you've recorded the processes, then they're more willing to say okay, right? Because you also have to build that trust factor. So if they don't trust you, like what can you do to build more trust?
It seems that over my career, from time to time, I encounter people who believe they've been discriminated against and they've been fired or demoted or prevented from being promoted. And they ask me what to do. And sometimes I go through a process of talking with them about, is this something you want to champion? Do you
Yeah.
want to be fighting against your former employer, or do you want to move on to the next opportunity? What do you say to people who are being discriminated against because of their culture or ethnicity?
I mean, it happens to everyone, right? Like, especially like I've gone through it. I've been discriminated time and time again, and I have to make a decision. Do I keep moving forward or do I stop? Right? I mean, progress, unfortunately, is one step forward and five steps back.
Mm.
you know, but I keep pushing. I keep moving forward because I understand I have a bigger purpose. So, like, if it were easy, everyone would be doing it, right? But unfortunately, this is life. We go through racism, we go through prejudice, we go through sexism. How do we navigate that? What are the decisions that we're going to make? Like, if you can't get a seat at the table, what are you going to do? Do you keep fighting for that seat, or do you create your own seats, right? Like, there's you have to like think what do you want to do after? Like, do you want to keep going or do you want to start something else? So it's probably not the answer that the people are looking for, but like, sometimes like we have to make those hard decisions sometimes.
Yeah, there's not the same answer for everyone in every situation. But I always look to people who have been like plaintiffs in litigation or who have fought for advocacy. I always see them as heroic champions, but we don't always see the sacrifices they made.
Yeah, they went through a lot of pushback that we don't even know of. So, and I wish they probably shared more of that so they people can understand that it took a lot of pushback to get that advocacy change, or get that change that we wanted to see.
I'm curious if you, as a Canadian now, see what's going on in the US. If
Oh, it's
there's
okay
any
if we don't talk
comments you
about
would like to
politics. It's okay if we don't
if there
talk
was
about.
any comment you would if there's any comments you would like to make around the immigration
I mean,
topic in the US.
I actually don't like commenting on that. Just like
Okay.
it's not. Yeah, sorry.
That's probably very wise.
yeah.
Talking about starting over as we come to a new country, is it um, something that immigrants can do to find the universal skills that local recruiters often overlook when they're presenting their portfolio?
I mean, I think it's important to do your research, right? Like, get curious, start figuring out what they're looking for. Talk to people who are in similar situations. Um, like if you do your research, like it's easier for you to prepare, right? Like a lot of people just go into it and just like take action, which is nothing wrong. But like if you want to give your best interview, like there's one thing that I share in the book called having low risk confidence. Like, start practicing in front of your wife, your friend, so that on the day that the interview comes, then it's a lot easier for them to go through it. So,
You've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews. What would you want me to ask you now?
oh, I'm not even sure.
What question haven't I asked? What is something that you came prepared to talk about with relationship to resilient immigration? What's something
I
that
mean, I think we've touched on everything.
we've touched on everything? I
I feel like
prepared. I prepared, I read, I watched, I listened, and I used different materials to prepare myself because I was kind of impressed and maybe a little bit starstruck by getting the
oh my
opportunity to
gosh.
interview you
Thank you.
because you're an international influencer and I'm a humble community organizer here in rural Georgia.
Oh my goodness. We're all the same. We're all human.
I wanted to ask you about one other thing, and that has to do with the resilient immigrant. I understand that this platform that is sponsoring us today is called Resilient Immigrant. And we always take a moment to reaffirm why we're here. At
Okay.
Resilient Immigrant, their philosophy is they don't just share information, they want to change narratives and highlight success stories that inspire and transform. And you've talked in your visible network about how your voice and your identity are so key. I just think it's breathtaking how you have inspired and transformed in your own life. And I just wanted to ask you, if you were speaking to a younger version of yourself, if you could give advice to a young Sheena, what would you like her to know about how things are going now?
I would probably tell her that everything will work out and just start messy, be okay to make mistakes. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you're more than capable to make it happen.
So let's finish up by talking about standing with resilient immigrant. And we've been asked to say, I, Gareth, stand with resilient immigrant. And I've been asked to ask you if you are a resilient immigrant, if you'd like to state that you yourself are a resilient immigrant.
Yeah, I, Sheena Yap Chan, am a resilient immigrant.
Wonderful. And before we head out, we are always looking to grow this table and this forum that we've created here online. And I'd like to address anybody watching this. If you know someone, a mentor, a colleague, or a friend, or an influencer like Sheena Yap Chen, who should be our next speaker or host, please drop their name in the chat or email us at support@resilientimmigrant.org. And we align our speaker and host schedules to make this as easy as possible for volunteers. And I just want to thank you, Sheena, for being here and taking a moment out of your extremely busy schedule to do this interview with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a blast.